We frequently discuss the idea that being made in God's image is about more than just even being his representative. At its deepest level is that invitation to be his presence, his governing presence in the situations and circumstances in your life. In being his governing presence always produces results. But how do you evaluate your effectiveness? How do you gauge the degree of success? So let's look at how that instruction to occupy until I return is a mandate, and it is a significant aspect of your calling. It's literally part of your ministry, and that's a great way to evaluate how you're doing. But as we'll see in a moment, it's always about the external focus rather than internal. Now, when Jesus said, occupy until I return, you probably heard it explained as do business until I return. And while that is accurate, and we do need people doing business, we need more kingdom leaders in the business world. But that definition, while accurate, is a bit incomplete. Or, as you may have heard, be productive, stay busy. And again, is an accurate representation of the literal definition, but again, misses a key point that it's not about holding on. That understanding from a kingdom perspective, occupying always produces results. Now, before we get into the results, how is this part of your calling and part of your ministry? People often think of ministry as either something for others or some type of religious service. But the reality is God calls each of his people to be a leader, to have a ministry. And while ministry literally means to serve, it really means to act as that go-between, to be the intermediary between God and the people in your life, the situations, the circumstances, the everyday, even the mundane. God is calling you to be his go-between, his intermediary. And again, it always produces results. Now, on a side note, we won't get into that today. To accelerate, to emphasize your success in that, God gives each one spiritual gifts for the benefit of everyone around them. It's evidence of the Holy Spirit in your life, and it is your unique empowerment. But regardless of what your spiritual gift is, your calling, your mandate is to occupy. So what does occupying really mean? Well, from a kingdom perspective, it always produces results. It's not about the activity, but about the results. Think of it this way. God put Adam in the Garden of Eden, which we think of as perfect, to tend it and to keep it. And the idea there is not necessarily hard labor, but to beautify and expand what God has already established. And it's recognizing the people, again, situations, circumstances in your life. Those are the things where God has placed you there to be that difference maker, that intermediary, the go-between. So how do we evaluate? I'm going to give you just two simple ways to look at what it should produce, although you will probably come up with more of your own. The first one is increase. It's always about expansion. And not just numerically, but in every sense of the word. That God's desire is the kingdom would expand to touch the entire world. That it would bring blessing, increase, health, healing, and so on. Which literally leads to the second one. That one of the most profound and the misunderstood is peace. That peace is not, from God's perspective, absence of stress or conflict, but rather peace produces tangible results. That literally when Jesus told the disciples, let their peace rest upon the place they stay, it would not just be an atmosphere, but it was expected to produce provision, blessing, healing, reconciliation. That those would be the consequences of their peace resting upon the place where they were. So how do we just simply apply this? How do we look at it as a way to gauge How am I doing? And why it has to be external. Focusing inward is deceptive. There are times it will cause us to believe we're doing amazing, and more frequently, there are times it will cause us to feel like we're not making progress. But everything the kingdom does and is about is always external. It's about what we give out. Now, here's the beauty. God never lets you be shortchanged. That when it says give, and it'll be given back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing, that's not just financially, which is how it's generally been applied, but in every aspect. That God is calling you to be that go-between, that intermediary of provision, of blessing, of wisdom. And the way to evaluate it is the result it's producing in the world around you. On a side note, one of the aspects of peace that it was expected to bring order from disorder. And going back to the increase, peace was even expected to produce increase. The situation, circumstances, people in your lives. Are you producing peace? Is the net result that your experience, your involvement is producing life and hope, even if they can't explain it? Is the net result increase? Again, order from disorder, improvement, reconciliation, ultimately transformation. And again, it's not about us. It's about reflecting the one who sent us. And in his amazing generosity, we just get to enjoy the blessings in the process. So here's the challenge today. Threefold. First off, recognize that your call to occupy is a mandate and a ministry. Number two, what's the area then, if that's the case, what's the area that you recognize needs a little more attention, needs a little more direction from God? What's the thing catching your attention where the Holy Spirit is saying, let's put some effort here. Let's bring some life, hope, transformation. And number three, how do you evaluate? How do you look at it from the standpoint and recognize how God is working through you, moving through you to declare himself and his kingdom? Because you're occupying. You are that governing presence. You're the go-between in those situations, circumstances, even the ones that are mundane. Recognizing that is your calling. That's your ministry. God is glorified and people's lives are touched.